Incredible encounter, Billionaire reveals amazing support for heartwarming black mom in crisis. Angela woke up to the sound of the old alarm clock blaring. She glanced at the clock and quickly threw off the covers, her heart racing as she thought of the day ahead. Everything seemed to weigh heavily upon her, a crushing burden stretching over her heart like a thick, suffocating blanket. A single mom living in a vibrant but struggling Atlanta neighborhood, Angela had learned to juggle life's many demands. Balancing 2 jobs while raising her 12-year-old son, Malik, and her 8-year-old daughter, Zoe, was no small feat yet. She did it with fierce determination. After losing her husband, she vowed to provide her children with a stable life. But just when she thought her unbreakable spirit would prevail, came the devastating news. The diner where she worked had closed its doors for good. As bills piled up like unsorted laundry, the hope of a brighter future felt like ashes in her mouth. She couldn't shake the fear of what would happen next. What if I can't pay the rent? What will happen to my kids? The thought gnawed at her insides, leaving her with a tight chest and tearful eyes. In her heart, she held on to the belief that they'd overcome, just like she always had, but every stumbling block made it harder to breathe. Fear dripped like sweat down her back as she watched Malik and Zoe laugh in the living room, unaware of the storm brewing outside their little bubble of innocence. Across town, billionaire David Thompson, a child of the same neighborhood, felt the weight of nostalgia. He had made it big but had never forgotten his roots. Lately, he felt a longing to give back to the community that had shaped him, an impulse fueled by the stories of struggle and resilience swirling through the air like dandelion seeds. He decided to launch a surprise initiative to support families in crisis, providing skills training and job placement. But when he stumbled upon Angela's story, something clicked within him. Her relentless spirit called out to him, awakening a desire to lend a hand. David arrived at Angela's door with an offer of assistance, a spark of hope wrapped in the guise of generosity. However, Angela's pride flared up like a wildfire. "I don't need charity. I've always pulled myself up," she thought, battling feelings of shame and inadequacy. When she overheard Malik and Zoe whispering their fears, she felt the ground beneath her shake. "I wish things were better, Mom," Zoe said softly, her eyes glistening with sadness. Angela's heart cracked open, revealing a glimmer of vulnerability. If this was the hope her children needed, could she really turn it away? "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With a deep breath, Angela agreed to meet with David. As the initiative began to unfold in her community, it ignited passionate debates. Some accused him of using their struggles for a public relations stunt. Angela, meanwhile, felt a knot tightening in her stomach. How could she advocate for others while battling pride? Just as she started to find her footing, the pressures mounted, and accusations flared. Was their bond strong enough to withstand the storm of criticism? Could help truly uplift the downtrodden? In that moment, Angela suddenly realized, accepting help wasn't weakness, it would be the first step toward change. But could she take that step without losing herself? Angela stood at the threshold of her small apartment, grappling with the mix of emotions swirling within her. She had always prided herself on her independence, on tackling challenges head-on without relying on anyone. But the moment she looked into David's sincere eyes, she felt something shift. The weight of their struggles, her children's soft whispers of doubt, and the flicker of hope ignited by David's offer pressed against her heart like a paradox. The sun filtered through the window, catching dust motes in its golden hue, illuminating the room around her. It felt like a sign. With a deep breath, she stepped outside into the vibrant chaos of her neighborhood. Kids rode bikes down the street, neighbors greeted each other cheerfully, and somewhere, music played from a distant barbecue. This life was theirs, full of color and warmth, yet labored under unseen burdens. The coffee shop where they had agreed to meet was buzzing with energy. As Angela walked in, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped her like a comforting embrace. David was already there, a disarming smile brightening his face as he stood to greet her. It was disconcerting to feel the draw of his easy confidence amidst her own turmoil. His shoes were polished, his hair neatly styled, and yet, there was a sincerity about him that caught her off guard. "Thank you for coming, Angela," he said, his voice warm and inviting. "I really believe we can do something great together." She sat across from him, folding her hands tightly in her lap. "You said you wanted to help families like mine. But why me?" she asked, trying to mask the tremor in her voice. Her mind raced with possibilities. Was he genuinely interested in her, or was this all part of some big initiative? David leaned forward, his gaze steady. "Because you are a fighter. I read about your struggles and saw how you've persevered for your kids. That kind of spirit deserves support. It deserves recognition." Angela found it hard to absorb his words. Recognition? It felt foreign and uncomfortable. The discussion surrounding his initiative nagged at her, voices whispering doubts, casting shadows on his promises. Would others see her as a failure for accepting his help? As she stirred her coffee absent-mindedly, David continued speaking, elaborating on the resources available: job training programs, mentorship, even rent relief. Her heart skipped at the thought. This could be the lifeline they desperately needed. Could it also mean a safe space for her children, where they could thrive without fear? Just then, the door swung open, and Malik and Zoe rushed in, their faces bright with excitement. Their joy washed over her like a cool breeze on a scorching day. "Mom! Can we have ice cream after school today?" Zoe pleaded, her eyes sparkling with hope. Angela felt her heart swell. This was why she fought so hard. It wasn't just about her anymore, it was about them, their future. Turning back to David, she whispered, "I don't want my kids to struggle like I did." He nodded, understanding etched on his features. "I promise, we can make it better. Together." But as Angela looked at her children, a new fear surfaced. What if accepting this help meant they would grow dependent? What if it changed who they were? Was she ready to risk it? As the afternoon sun cast long shadows in the room, Angela closed her eyes for a moment. "I need to think," she finally said, the weight of the decision heavy on her shoulders. David smiled softly. "Take your time, Angela. It's a big step." But as she left the cafe, the weight of possibility loomed larger than ever, pulling her in two directions. Could she really allow herself to lean on someone else? And just as she stepped outside, a sudden commotion broke the air. Siren wails in the distance, growing nearer. What did it mean for their community? How would it impact her decision? Angela stepped out of the coffee shop, her heart racing as the sound of sirens grew louder. A knot formed in her stomach. The neighbors often joked about the siren regulars, the police cars that seemed to glide through the neighborhood like unwanted visitors. Today, their wails sliced through the afternoon chatter and laughter, striking an unsettling tone that crackled through her awareness. Malik and Zoe, still buzzing with ice cream hopes, stood beside her, their innocent faces filled with curiosity. "What's happening, Mom?" Malik asked, his brows furrowing. She glanced down at them, her chest tightening. "I'm not sure, sweetie. Let us see." As she turned her gaze toward the commotion, an unsettling scene unfolded just a block away. A crowd had gathered, eyes wide and voices raised, some gesturing frantically. Two police cars were parked with lights flashing, creating a flickering illusion of excitement. But the atmosphere was thick with tension. "Stay close," Angela murmured. She felt the warmth of their small fingers entwining with hers, and a sense of protectiveness surged within her. She wanted to shelter them from whatever fate awaited at that scene, but she pulled deeper, sensing a pull to seek answers. They approached the crowd cautiously, the sounds of shouting mixing with urgent conversations. Her instincts flared. Familiar faces emerged, some residents she knew by name, others by whispers of their stories. Lila Sanders, an elderly neighbor, stood at the forefront, her face contorted in concern. Angela caught snippets of conversation. The shooting, can you believe it? Right in front of the school. Angela's heart sank. The world outside her apartment had felt so vibrant just moments ago. Now it appeared like a tapestry slowly unraveling. She gripped her children's hands tighter. What does shooting mean, Mom? Zoe asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Angela took a breath, her mind racing. It's when someone uses a gun, honey. It's when people get hurt. With every word, her heart ached, wishing she could shield them from the harsh edges of reality that cut into their childhood innocence. Just then, a young man broke free from the crowd, visibly shaken, tears streaming down his face. We need to do something. He cried out, his voice desperate. This can't keep happening. We can't let fear take over our home. Angela felt an electric sense of solidarity with him, but also a cold chill deep in her bones. The urgency swept her up, sparking a desire to help, to act, but her mind flicked back to David's promise. I need to think. I can't do both. Zoe tugged at her sleeve, her small voice breaking through Angela's inner turmoil. Are we going to help them, Mom? Can we? Caught in that moment, the weight of her decisions pressed onto her chest again. The sirens, the community's fears, David's offer, all wrapped together. It felt too tangled to unravel. Could she truly stand up for others when her own family's stability was at stake? As she looked down at her children, Angela saw their wide eyes filled with uncertainty. She realized this was a defining moment. They needed guidance, not just from her but from the community that surrounded them. As she steadied her resolve, she turned to her children. Let us see if we can help. Together. The words slipped from her lips, and a feeling of warmth wrapped around her heart, but the uncertainty lingered. Just as she took a step forward, a voice rang out from behind, Hey! Is everyone okay? It was David, emerging from the thrumming crowd, concern etched on his face. What had he seen? She wondered, feeling the tension fracture like fragile glass. With David's eyes searching hers, 100 questions raced through her mind. What if he had the answers she needed? But more importantly, what did this moment mean for her life moving forward? Angela's heart raced as David approached. She had thought she'd need to navigate this chaotic scene alone, relying on her instincts, but there he was, a lifeline amid the turmoil. The weight of his gaze made her acutely aware of how much was at stake. She could feel the children's fingers still gripping hers, their trust unwavering, a silent reminder of what she stood to protect. Angela. David called again, urgency climbing in his voice. I saw the commotion from across the street. Is this serious? Yeah, Angela replied, swallowing hard. There's been a shooting. Right by the school. The truth felt ugly on her tongue, a stark contrast to the colorful afternoon that had promised joy just moments ago. He nodded, his expression shifting from concern to determination. We need to check on everyone. Make sure they're okay. Malik and Zoe shuffled behind her, eyes darting to the chaos unfolding in front of them. Angela's heart broke for them. They shouldn't have to witness this. But here they were, standing on the precipice of something much larger than themselves. Mom, can we help? Malik asked. The innocence in his voice was a bomb and a dagger at the same time. She didn't want them to be part of this. There was so much danger, so many unknowns. But part of her also understood that this was a pivotal moment not just for her, but for her children too. They needed to learn about compassion and community, even in the face of darkness. Before she could respond, David stepped forward. Angela, we can gather support. Rally the neighborhood. The more voices we have, the more powerful we'll be. His words stirred something deep within her, a flicker of hope against the dark reality. Right, together, she echoed, thinking of a time years ago when she had organized bake sales to fund school trips. That same spirit, now facing an entirely different challenge. Let us start over there. David pointed towards the edge of the crowd where a group of parents huddled together. If we can get everyone to listen, we might be able to make some noise. Angela nodded, a new sense of purpose igniting within her. Okay, let us do it. But as they moved toward the clustering crowd, something nagged at her insides. For every step they took toward action, shadows of doubt loomed closer. Would this be enough? Could they truly make a difference in a world that felt so broken? Mom? Zoe whispered, sensing her hesitation. Are we really going to help them? Angela knelt down so she could look her daughter in the eye. Yes, honey. We are going to do our best to help. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of those words. But if things get too scary, we'll step back, okay? Zoe nodded, though a flicker of worry remained in her eyes. The crowd swelled as they approached, the murmurs growing louder. David began speaking, and it felt as though the air crackled with shared anxiety and the desperate need for hope. His voice cut through the tension, drawing people's attention like a beacon in the storm. Listen. He called out. We can't let fear tear our community apart. Together we can bring change. We have to stand up and fight for our safety. Angela felt the stir of emotions around her: fear, anger, and a budding thirst for unity. And just as the murmurs evolved into a swell of determined voices, a sharp cry pierced the air, slicing through the moment. A child at the fringes of the crowd screamed. What was that? Panic surged through Angela. We need to. Suddenly, the crowd surged in a different direction, voices rising in confusion and fear. Angela's grip on her children tightened as the world spun around her. The knot in her stomach twisted tighter, and dread shadowed every heartbeat. What had they stepped into? Where was their safety now? And as she grasped for answers in the chaos, she realized this was only the beginning. The crowd erupted. Cries mixed with the anxious rustle of movement, and Angela's heart hammered in her chest. Stay close, she shouted, pulling Malik and Zoe tighter under her protective arm. The sound of footsteps pounding against pavement echoed all around, and for a moment, Angela felt like they were all swept into a tempest. What's happening? Malik gasped, his small frame trembling against her side. I don't know, Angela replied, her voice breaking. Fear clutched at her throat. The uncertainty felt like a heavy fog pressing against her with every frantic second. She scanned the crowd, searching for a familiar face, for anything that resembled safety. Then, amid the chaos, she caught sight of a mother, her eyes wild and desperate. My son. He was just here. The woman screamed, her hands outstretched. The crowd parted, a wave of emotion crashing over everyone. Angela felt the urge to run, but David stepped forward, his presence steadier than she felt. Ma'am. Where did you last see him? David's voice rose above the din, an anchor trying to stabilize the ship in a storm. He was right near the playground. Her words were frantic, eyes darting toward the school building shrouded in confusion and fear. Angela's instincts kicked in. I'll help look. She turned to her kids, forcing a calming smile despite her trembling hands. Stay here with David. I'll be back. I promise. Please, Mom. Zoe pleaded, her eyes wide. I'll find him. I'll be right back, Angela assured her as she squeezed her daughter's small hands and released her grip reluctantly. With a quickened pace, Angela pushed through the writhing bodies of onlookers. She caught whispers of concern, snippets of frantic conversations, and the raw fear that connected them all. Every face mirrored her own anxiety. Everyone shared the same horrified realization that such violence could strike home. She reached the playground, her heart racing more with each step. Through the swings and slides, she called out, "Is anyone here?" The emptiness echoed back, her voice swallowed by the growing tension. Then she saw him, a small figure crouched behind a bush, his trembling hands clutching his basketball. A boy, no older than Malik. Hey! Angela whispered urgently. Are you okay? You need to come out. The boy hesitated, his face streaked with tears. They said to stay here, it's not safe. She knelt down, heart bursting for him. I know it feels scary, but I can help you. We have to get you back to your mom. She's worried. He peeked out, then looked back towards the crowd that seemed to swallow the world beyond the bush. Each moment felt drawn out, a mix of urgency and painful longing in his eyes. Please, she coaxed softly, you're brave. I'm right here with you. After a long pause, he nodded and crawled out, uncertainty still clouding his features. Angela took his hand, warmth spilling through their connection. Together, they turned back toward the crowd. But just as they emerged, something shifted in the atmosphere. Angela could feel an undercurrent of energy beginning to expand, voices rising not just with fear, but determination. David, standing tall, was rallying the crowd again, his words now igniting hope. She heard him. We can't just stand by. We're stronger together. We won't let fear win. That spirit surged through Angela, pushing her forward, and she held the boy's hand tighter. Together, they stepped into the growing strength of the crowd, and for a moment, it felt like they were all one. But then she turned a corner and saw a figure materialize from the shadows, an imposing presence dressed in a tailored suit, his jaw tense but eyes fierce. He strode forward with an urgency that felt entirely out of place. Angela, he called out, voice laced with both authority and concern. We need to talk, and quickly. Confusion washed over her. Who was he? What did he want, especially now, in a moment they needed to band together most? Angela's heart raced yet again, uncertainty crashing over her anew. What was this billionaire doing here? And why did she have an inkling that a revelation was coming, one that could change everything? Angela squinted, trying to make sense of the man before her. He exuded a confidence that felt intimidating under the circumstances. Who are you? She asked, her voice barely a whisper, still clinging to the boy's hand as if he could shield her from the looming uncertainty. I'm Matthew Flynn, he replied, the name rolling off his tongue like he was used to every ear hanging on his words. And I'm here because I know what is going on and I want to help. A flicker of skepticism shot through Angela. Help from him? In a moment like this? Help how? She pressed, holding her breath. There's been a threat, Matthew said, his voice lowering to match the seriousness of his words. I can't go into details, but it's important that you and the children get to safety. The police are overwhelmed, and I have resources, people who can protect you. The weight of his statement hung in the air, vague and haunting. Angela's mind raced. Protect them from what? Questions surged within her, her instincts screaming at her to flee while her heart pulled her to trust. She glanced back at the crowd, who seemed to be rallying around David's fierce words, a force of unity in chaos. Please, Angela, Matthew pressed urgently, breaking through her spiraling thoughts. We need to move. Now. Just then, her daughter Zoe's small voice broke through the frantic energy, Mom. Who's that man? Angela took a shaky breath. It's okay, honey. I'm just talking to him. She turned back, locking eyes with Matthew. What are you even proposing? We can take you and the kids to a safe location until this blows over. There are places, secure places where you'll be safe from harm. You don't have to stay out here in the open. His golden promise flickered before her like a beacon through her fog of fear. But she wanted to identify the true essence of this stranger's intentions. Why you? She pressed again, a hint of defiance in her tone. Why now? Because I know what it's like to feel powerless, he admitted, his voice softening for a beat. I've seen what fear can do to families and I won't let it happen to you. Angela's resolve started to crack, torn between the urge to run back to her children, to the comfort of familiar faces, and the desperate need for safety. Can you promise me they'll be safe? My kids, they mean everything to me. More than anything, he said firmly. I swear it. At that moment, a loud crash echoed from the school building, a window smashing, the sound ricocheting off the walls, as if pushing all of them further into a corner of dread. The crowd gasped, motion shifting into a frantic sprint. Angela! David called, full of protective urgency as he spotted her with Matthew. Get back here. The tension in her heart escalated, merging with the call of her responsibility as a mother. What do I do? She rasped. Trust me, Matthew urged, gripping her shoulder. But if you stay here, you won't just be in danger. Your kids will be at risk too. Time is not on our side. In that heartbeat, Angela's pulse raced with confusion and fear, every instinct screaming at her. Could she really place her life and her children's futures in the hands of this man? Let us go, Angela. David yelled, weaving through the crowd toward them. The decision time loomed before her, sharp as a blade. Should she trust the stranger or go back to the familiar chaos that felt like a safety net? Before she could shout back to David, Matthew stepped closer. I promise I'll keep you together. No one gets left behind. A deep breath settled in her chest, and with a brief glance toward David, she made a choice that could lead her family into unknown peril or unexpected safety. As they turned, stepping into the unknown, a sudden explosion reverberated in the distance, igniting her fears anew. Angela's heart raced, and she felt the grip of uncertainty tightening around her, a storm brewing both outside and inside her. What if this was only the beginning? She wondered, the thought gnawing on her instincts. Now, she was on a fast track toward something she couldn't fully comprehend. What awaited them in the shadows ahead? Would they find sanctuary or uncover a deeper threat lurking in the storm? Angela felt the ground shift beneath her as the initial explosion echoed away, the sound morphing into a distant roar of panic. She held Zoe's hand tighter, her senses heightened, every detail around her sharp and vivid. The crowd, once a chaotic mix of fear and determination, now surged like a wild river, splitting and merging, people shouting and shoving, chaos wrapped in a desperate need to escape. Stay close. Matthew urged, pulling them into motion, his grip strong and steady. Angela glanced back at David, who was now trying to calm the swelling crowd. The worry etched on his face pulled at her heart. We'll be back for him, Matthew promised, as if sensing her internal struggle. His voice was calm, a stark contrast to the turmoil surrounding them. I promise. They slipped through the crowd until they reached the edge of the school grounds, where an old minivan idled, its engine humming like a swarm of bees. Matthew ushered the children in first, and Angela hesitated just a moment longer, casting one last glance at the chaos behind her. Get in. Matthew urged again, the urgency in his voice refocusing her mind. She climbed into the back seat, pulling Zoe and the boy, it was Ethan, close. With one last look toward David, she found herself wishing for the comfort of his presence, his protective embrace. But she had to trust. She had to believe. As the van lurched forward, she felt a part of herself splinter off, David fading further into the chaos, a tether snapping amid a storm. The fear chased her down the street. Where are we going? She managed to ask, her voice trembling. Somewhere safe, Matthew replied, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. I'll explain everything soon. Just try to relax. Angela took a shaky breath, looking at her kids. Zoe, wide-eyed and scared, pressed into her side. Ethan clung to the edge of the seat, the shadows of uncertainty reflecting in his gaze. They needed reassurance. It's going to be okay, Angela whispered to them, though she felt anything but okay inside. But then, gazing at Matthew, she found something in his eyes, a glimmer of conviction that softened the weight of her pounding heart. He was determined, focused, and if she had to put her faith in anyone, it might as well be him. Minutes turned into an eternity as they sped through the streets, the familiar buildings morphing into strange shapes under the shroud of doom hanging around them. I just want to go home, Zoe whimpered, her small voice cutting through Angela's thoughts. Angela leaned down, brushing her hand over Zoe's hair. I know, sweetie. We'll get back soon. I promise. But would they? Was home still a safe haven, or merely an illusion? A gnawing doubt took root in her stomach, twisting tight. Suddenly, the van screeched to a halt, rocks skittering against the tires. "What is happening?" Angela's voice rose in alarm. Matthew's face tightened, his expression shifting from confidence to caution. "We can't stay here. They'll find us if we do," he declared, glancing at the rear-view mirror, straining to see what lurked behind. "Who will find us?" Angela pressed, panic coiling through her again. "What is going on, Matthew? You need to tell me." He turned to her, his gaze piercing. "I wish I could explain now, but it's too risky." The silence that followed felt thick with tension. Outside, shadows moved beyond the tinted glass, and Angela's heart thudded painfully in her chest. "We need to get out of here," Matthew said urgently. "Now. Follow my lead." As they all moved, scrambling toward an uncertain future, Angela could feel the threat breathing on their necks, a cold whisper of fear clawing its way back into her mind. What awaited them outside the van? Would they discover safety or stumble into a terrifying unknown? Time seemed to hang heavily in the air, each moment stretching out with silent promise and peril, urging her to break free from the confines of her fears. They stepped into the night, unsure of what lay ahead. The air outside the van was thick, heavy with tension and the scent of impending rain. Angela squinted into the darkness, her heart racing as she tried to grasp at shapes slipping past the edges of her vision. She clutched Zoe tightly, feeling the warmth of her daughter beside her amidst the cold uncertainty. "Stay close," she whispered, her voice barely a breath as they moved. Matthew led them, his steps steady but quick, eyes darting from side to side as if danger lurked in every shadow. Ethan walked close to Angela, his little body trembling. She felt his fear like a tangible force, a reminder of the world they had left behind. What if we don't find him?" he asked. The innocence in his voice was heart-wrenching. "We have to believe we will," Angela replied, her own heart breaking. "David will find us. He always does." Yet, deep inside, a hollow echo of doubt whispered if that were true. Matthew paused, turning to check on them. "We need to keep moving. Trust me," he urged, his voice low but confident. Ahead, flickering headlights approached, cutting through the darkness. Panic surged in Angela. "What if they're just stay behind me?" Matthew instructed, taking a cautious step forward. As they ducked into a narrow alley, Angela's pulse thrummed in her ears. The shadows wrapped around them, and she could feel every heartbeat marked by the night. The cool air pierced her skin, but it was the anxiety gnawing inside her that made her shudder. They slipped deeper into the alley, dodging piles of debris and rusted fences. Each step forwarded felt like wading through thick mud. Then, without warning, loud voices erupted behind them. Angela's heart dropped as fear clawed at her throat. "They can't be far. Check every corner." A man shouted, the urgency in his voice slicing through the night air. Matthew's gaze turned steely. "We have to hide. Now." They rushed behind a large dumpster brimming with discarded trash. The smell was overpowering, but Angela barely noticed. She pressed herself closer to Zoe, squeezing her eyes shut as the shouts grew louder, echoing off the brick walls. "Where are they?" Another voice shouted, closer now, the menace tangible. They all held their breath, silence stretching, broken only by the pounding of Angela's heart. She felt Zoe's small hand gripping hers tightly, fear radiating off her in waves. Matthew peered out from their makeshift hideout, whispering fierce words. "We need to wait until it's clear, then we'll run to the other side." But then the footsteps stopped. A figure loomed at the end of the alley, shrouded in darkness. "I know you're here," the voice called out, rich and smooth, yet laced with menace. "I can help you." Angela's stomach twisted. Who could that be? Was this a trick? "Stay here," Matthew hissed, his body tense. But as the figure stepped into the dim light filtering from the street, Angela held her breath. The man wore an expensive suit, a sharp contrast to the disarray surrounding them. There was something unsettling yet calm about him, as if he belonged to an entirely different world. "I can provide safety, if you come with me," the stranger continued, his eyes glinting with shrewdness. Angela's heart raced, torn between the instinct to trust and the pressing fear that tore at her resolve. "What do you want?" Angela asked, her voice firm despite her trembling heart. The man smiled, a slow, calculating grin, and her gut clenched tighter. "Just your cooperation, and I'll make sure you never have to worry about tonight again." Could she trust him? Could there be safety in surrendering to this unexpected ally? Or was this just another illusion, like the fleeting dreams of a peaceful life? She glanced at Matthew, who looked cautiously intrigued but cautious. Behind them, Zoe and Ethan's wide eyes searched hers. Would they dare take the leap into this unknown? How would she decide on behalf of them all, with everything hanging in the balance? Angela felt a choice looming over her: accept help or continue running into a night of uncertainty. What did that choice mean for their safety? And would they be able to embrace whatever the stranger offered, or would it lead them into even deeper danger? Angela's heart pounded in her chest as the man stepped closer, his tailored suit looking out of place in the grim alley, like a beacon of promise amid chaos. "You risk everything by staying hidden," he said, voice smooth, calming. "I assure you, I can guarantee your safety. But only if you trust me." Matthew shifted next to her, studying the man with narrowed eyes. "Trust is earned, not given," he replied firmly, irritation mingling with skepticism. His protective instincts flared, and Angela could see the muscles in his jaw working. "What's your name?" Angela asked, trying to gauge the man's sincerity, her throat dry as fear danced on the edges of her thoughts. "Call me Richard," he replied, his tone silky. "I'm here to help you, Angela. I know what you seek: your son." The very mention of David made her heart lurch. Was it true? Did Richard know about him? Every mother's instinct told her to run, yet the chill of desperation held her in place. "Why do you know about my son?" she demanded, feeling a wave of vulnerability crash over her. Richard smiled again, the glint in his eyes unwavering. "I have resources. I can get you back to your family. But we have limited time." Angela cast a glance at Zoe, who had remained silent, staring up at her with those wide, trusting eyes. Ethan stood close, fingers tugging at Angela's sleeve, his fear bubbling under the surface. They needed safety, they needed to find David. But the anxiety wrapped tightly around her, making her aware of every unspoken danger. "Will you help us?" Angela asked, partially hoping he would say something that would turn the tide of her decision. "Yes," Richard said, simply and clearly. "But you must agree to come with me now." A silence stretched in the alleyway. The only sounds were the distant murmurs of chaos from the street and the anxious breaths of the children. Matthew's hand rested protectively in front of Angela. "We can't just uproot ourselves because a stranger says he's here to help. How do we know this isn't a trap?" Richard's expression shifted, his calm demeanor transitioning into a hint of irritation. "If you want to continue playing hide and seek, that's your choice. But I promise, it will only get worse from here." Angela felt torn, trapped between fear and the glimmer of hope this man offered. Could there really be safety in surrendering to him? Taking a deep breath, she glanced again at Matthew. Their eyes locked, and she silently searched for an answer to propel them forward. "Look, I don't know who you are or what you want, but my son is out there," Angela said, her voice trembling. "If you know anything, if you can really help us," Richard interrupted, "I can. That's why I'm here. No time to waste. Follow me, and you'll see." Zoe's tiny hand squeezed her mother's, urging her to respond. With a feeling akin to throwing herself off a cliff, Angela exhaled slowly, "Okay. We'll come with you." Matthew nodded, though uncertainty flickered in his eyes. As they stepped out from the shadows of the dumpster, Angela felt exposed. Richard gestured for them to follow as he led the way into the night, moving with purpose and confidence. The alley opened into a dimly lit street, and the faint sounds of life buzzed around them, a world that felt distant from the chaos they had encountered, but before Angela could register any relief, a distant sound of sirens pierced the air, echoing ominously through the concrete jungle. Her breath caught in her throat. What if they were already too late? Stay close. Richard shouted, glancing back at them, urgency propelling him forward as whispers of panic filled the air. We have to move faster. As they hurried down the street, Angela's thoughts raced. Was the promise of safety worth the risk of trusting this man? Was David still out there, waiting for them? With every step, the weight of that decision pressed heavier, as if time itself were orchestrating a dance of fate. And through it all, one question looped endlessly in her mind: would they emerge from the shadows to find courage and resolve, or would they fall deeper into the darkness of uncertainty? And with that uncertainty hanging over her like the storm clouds gathering in the distance, Angela realized the very heart of what they needed most: hope. But what if that hope was laced with danger? Would they all come out intact on the other side? Angela held tight to Zoe's hand, her heart pounding like a drum as they moved down the dimly lit street. She cast furtive glances at Richard, whose confident demeanor masked the anxiety that churned within her. The sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder, wrapping around them like a twisted cocoon of dread. Were they running towards safety or deeper into a perilous trap? Will we find my son? She finally asked, her voice shaking. A flicker of desperation snaked through her gut, twisting with every step they took away from the chaos. Richard turned, his gaze steady and earnest. I promise you, Angela. I will do everything to reunite you with him. Hope battled against skepticism in her heart. She needed reassurance, yet the weight of her choices crushed her resolve. Her thoughts drifted to David, that inspiring connection ignited in the cafe, and she felt a sudden swell of longing for that sense of protection. Could he still be fighting for their community while she stumbled into the shadows with a stranger? As they turned a corner, the night outside seemed less oppressive, the golden glow of streetlights chasing back the darkness. But Angela remembered the urgency of the moment. A mother's instinct was to protect her children. She couldn't allow fear to dictate her actions. Angela. Richard's voice cut through her spiraling fears. Keep moving. He gestured towards a nondescript door set into a brick wall. Angela's heart raced not with excitement, but with sheer force of determination. Could this really lead to safety? She turned to Matthew, and he nodded slightly, still wary but willing to follow her lead. They stepped through the door, the dim light inside revealing a small, cozy room filled with scattered furniture. There was an air of sanctuary that wrapped around them like a warm blanket, yet the menacing sounds outside felt fresh even in the stillness. Stay here, Richard instructed, pacing toward the windows, peering out into the night. I'll check the perimeter. Angela squeezed Zoe's hand. We'll be okay, she whispered, though uncertainty trickled into her voice. Ethan sat near them, his wide eyes darting around as if afraid that the shadows might come alive. Time seemed to stretch endlessly. The room felt like a ticking clock, moments counting with the heavy beats of their hearts. Angela took a deep breath. She needed to calm her racing thoughts. Do you think they're looking for us? Zoe's innocent voice cracked the silence. Angela knelt down, drawing her daughter close. It's okay, sweetheart. They're just worried about us. But a whisper in her heart reminded her that worry could turn into something darker. Richard's footsteps echoed back into the room, and she looked up, meeting his intense gaze. How are you holding up? He asked, the question drawing a fleeting smile from Angela. It was an odd comfort. I just want my son, she confessed, feeling tears prick her eyes. I get it, he said softly. But I need you to trust me just a little longer. I'm working to reunite you. You have to be strong for them. In those words, Angela felt a flicker of strength spark back to life. She squared her shoulders, pulling power from the very essence of motherhood. The fierce, unyielding love that always fought against despair. Just then, a noise shattered through the air, a loud crash. The floor trembled slightly, and the overhead lights flickered. Angela's heart jolted, reverberating with the realization that their sanctuary might be at risk. Richard's eyes widened. "We have to move, now." They surged from the room, propelled by instinct and fear, Richard leading the way. Angela held Zoe close, whispering "Stay with me" over and over. The hallway felt like a suffocating tunnel, every twist and turn a gamble against the unknown. "The back exit," Richard instructed, guiding them through a door that led to a narrow staircase spiraling downward. Each step felt like a leap away from safety and into uncertainty, yet surrender wasn't an option. She pressed onward, fueled by the stealthy hum of survival. At the bottom, they reached a small escape door leading into an alley. Richard pushed it open, checking for danger before signaling everyone to rush through. They stepped out into the cool night, breath fogging the air in short puffs. "Run!" he urged, sprinting further down the alley. Angela's legs felt heavy, and her heart thundered as they raced through the darkness. Just as streetlights flickered ahead, Angela spotted a familiar figure. "David!" she shouted, her voice bursting through the cold night. He turned, swift recognition washing over his features. The relief that flickered in his eyes was a tidal wave crashing over her heart. "Angela! You found them!" he exclaimed, relief and concern mingling hand in hand. "Not yet," she gasped, nearly falling into his protective embrace. "We need to find Malik." "I've got you," he said, pulling her into an embrace, strength radiating from his presence. "Stay close," Richard urged. The urgency was palpable, and Angela could feel her world align once more, the pieces fitting around hope. In that moment, David turned to Richard. "What is going on?" "I'm here to help," Richard replied, voice unwavering. "But we don't have much time." "Let us regroup," David directed, urgency sharpening his tone. They formed a tight circle, their combined determination igniting a fire. Every moment counted, the need to act was palpable. "Angela, tell me where Malik was last seen," David said, intensity sparking in his gaze. "They might look towards the playground, by the school," she said, forcing her voice steady. "I just left him." "Then let us go," David said, his resolve radiating through the night as they felt the surrounding energy align. Their purpose was clear. The four of them set off, hearts beating as one, pulling strength from each other. They rushed back towards the school, toward the hope of reuniting their family and community within the chaos. The storm raged outside, but together, they could forge through it. With every step toward the school, Angela's heartbeat synced with a single thought: family, love, and hope could conquer even the darkest night. And as they dashed into the unknown, she felt an unbreakable bond grow stronger, a pulse that surged between them, uniting their fears and resilience like a shield. The lights shone bright ahead, illuminating the path as they pushed forward together, ready to face whatever awaited them, hand in hand, heart to heart. Now it was time to stand together, and they would not falter in the face of adversity. This is the moment. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss our next stories of courage and transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more hearts like yours. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending. Your thoughts matter, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this hope. Don't wait not even one more second. Real fans show their support.